to the third and final review of the set. Up this time is Timespinner. So I'm stepping away from this one because, well, this is not a game we got a review code for. It is a game that I'll use the royal we, that is to say, Galix, invested in. So he will be leading this review.
So Timespinner is by Lunar Ray Games, which is a very small studio, and it is a game that was funded on Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter was completed successfully on July 25th of 2014. So yeah, so this game it was released literally like a month or two ago. This was a game that had a really long development cycle. Which it kind of makes sense because it was like mostly one guy. It's a really small studio. But I was concerned for a while, but it finally came out, and I am actually really satisfied with the product so far. So, as you could tell in the
Well, looking at it, it's a very, very, very Castlevania-looking game.
Yes, this is a Metroidvania that fairly explicitly wears its intent to resemble in many ways Castlevania Symphony of the Night and its descendants on its sleeve. As you can tell, if you're looking at the video at all, the graphics, the menu interface, and a lot of the options you have are very similar to that game.
Yeah, we have actual gameplay for this review.
Yeah, the reason why we have two copies of this, we have the one I backed this at a level where I got two codes, so I was originally intending to get the other code for the 3DS, but that isn't out yet, and I missed the period where you could like note that that's what you wanted, so I gave Pettyfan the other Steam code that I got so we could have video for it.
I wouldn't be surprised if the 3DS version gets canceled.
They're still pretty sure that they're going to try to develop it, and I did join the Discord of the company or the studio, and they are talking about looking into doing a Switch port too. It is also on the PlayStation 4 and Vita, but that would have also required an upgrade, which I didn't do. So right now it's just Steam and PlayStation systems. So the story of the game is you play as a young girl named Lunace who belongs to a tribe that has been guarding an artifact known as the Timespinner, which basically lets a person travel back in time, but it removes them from the timeline that they came from. So it would be as if you never existed in your time, and usually it's only used when that timeline is, or the tribe in that timeline is under severe threat. And she was going to be one of the next time messengers, and then that gets accelerated when the Empire of Lakiem attacks, and basically she gets sent not exactly where she intended, and a lot of her tribe gets killed, so she decides she wants to destroy the Empire, and then the story progresses. It's not like a super innovative story, but there are some interesting things. She ends up later on in the past, and there are some interesting story developments there about like the origin of the Empire and all that stuff. The cast is actually pretty interesting and diverse. There are a lot of side quests to do of the general fetch quest, get me these items or kill this number of this things or find such and such an item, hard to find item. But the reward for them, I mean, you do get like in-game money, which is called entropy for that. But the biggest reward is that fulfilling the side quests is the main way that you get insight into the backstories of the characters, which are kind of interesting. As you can see, one of the catches that made me interested in playing this it reminded me of the idea of Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, which is you have two different orbs that you equip, and Lunais controls them telekinetically. And there are a bunch of different orbs in the game with
I believe
different.
they call her powers in this game Aura.
Yeah, Aura is the name for the ability to use magic, basically. And its presence and absence in areas is definitely important. She can always use the orbs, though, because they're your primary and actually only way of attacking. One of the things I'm slightly disappointed in this game is that you don't get a down kick when you get your double jump, because spoilers, you get a double jump. But yeah, you have two different orbs, or you can equip the same orb in both things. You don't need to get like doubles or worry about that. And they all attack in different ways and have different attributes. And then each orb can have a different spell equipped with it that is a more powerful attack that uses some of your aura or magic meter, which regenerates with time. And each orb can also have a passive effect, such as right now Petty Fan has the scythe ring that surrounds your orbs with little swirly blades that do added damage when they contact things or when you just walk by things. The other gimmick of this game that is fairly easy to forget once you're playing it is that pretty early in the game, you find a piece of the time spinner and then you can stop time. And when you stop time, you can also climb on enemies as platforms, which is kind of how you get to some places in different parts of the games. Enemies can't move and you can't be hurt by them, but you also can't hurt them because time is stopped.
Yeah, you're not using the world. It's more everything stops.
Yeah, that uses a separate meter, which is the hourglass of sand, which refills when you. I mean, this, like a lot of Castlevania games, has a priority system where like candles and stuff will drop sand first, and then if you're full on all that stuff, it'll drop money. Or when you deal damage to an enemy, it'll also refill a bit of your sand. And you also get a familiar for the first time, either the first time you die or at a certain point in the plot. And the familiar mostly just flies around and helps you out a little bit, but also if you are playing with another person there and you have another controller, they can control the familiar, and the familiar can be controlled freely on the screen, and then they can like hit the enemy 3 times and then they can use their special skill, which for the first familiar is just a fire breath, but some of the other ones have abilities like healing magic and stuff like that. And pretty much everything in the game can level up. Your character levels up and gets more hit points and magic. Your familiars level up from dealing damage to enemies before they die, and your orbs level up from using them to fight enemies. So everything is pretty usable. It's not like except for armor, which is mostly available through random drops, but is not super necessary because you can dodge a lot and you're not super weak either. And this game isn't one of the ones where you start out super fragile or where you take a long time to level up, so you can get pretty tanky fairly early even without particularly great armor. So I usually maximize luck with gear to, improve the amount that drops.
There is also a shop.
There is a shop. There are actually a couple of shops. One of the shops is run by the Merchant Crow, who is quite a character and is a little bit more relevant to some things than you might think. But
He's famous,
Yes, he was part of the Kickstarter campaign and everything. He actually says that in the game. I really do like the enemy design and the aesthetic of the game are a little bit more original than some of the other things because there's a future area that's way more futuristic than most Castlevania stuff usually is, and then there's a past area that's a little bit less untrodden territory, but is still it's not as gothic as Castlevania usually, and a lot of the enemies in the future time period have this cool kind of cyborg abomination thing, like these fleshy eye spiders, and the gargoyle sentry, which has been described as a cat on a Roomba, pretty much.
Mhm.
So yeah, I obviously I was looking forward to this game for a long time, so I have a pretty positive opinion of it in a lot of ways. So that's one of the reasons why I gave a code to Petty Fan, so he could have some input too. But I guess the controls are really neat and smooth. A lot of the gameplay is very satisfying. If I had to say some weak points, one is that partially because it had a really small team, it's a little bit smaller in scope than a lot of Metroidvanias are. I mean, you have a decent sized map in the two time periods, and then there's a final area, and there's a lot to explore and stuff, but it's not as expansive, and there aren't, like, one of the things that I like doing in the DS and Game Boy Advance Castlevanias was just collecting a huge variety of food items, and there isn't that much of that here. There's a little bit, but it's nice. But it does do a very good job of telling its story. And there's also a New Game Plus mode, which is interesting because even though you lose most of the relics that give you new abilities like double jump and stuff, you do get to keep your constant forward dash relic, which is one of the later ones you get, and also there's an orb you can get whose spell creates a climbable wall. And between those things, you can do a lot of interesting sequence breaking stuff in a New Game Plus mode. I have not completed it in New Game. You do actually also have to play on New Game Plus to complete it, because even though you never are locked out of any areas of the map, there's short form is that there are 3 different final bosses, and 2 of them are exclusive. You have to choose one or the other. You can do the third one and then either of those other 2 if you want, but so yeah, I really enjoy it. I'm glad I've seen some people playing it on Twitch and stuff, but I feel like this game deserves some publicity. So, any questions or input from Petty Fan now, since I've been running my mouth for a while?
Honestly, I've not been a big fan of the whole, like, Supervania side of Metroidvanias, but that's just a me thing. So it's like, I think this might be a little more Vania for my liking, but all in all, it's alright. You know, there are, some of the things are kind of weird, like the orbs. Sometimes, like, especially the blue ones, they go from the angle they are around you. So it's kind of hard to line up your shot, where I think I hit somebody, but I just missed them and I end up getting hit because of something out of my control, because there's not really a nice parry other than that backslide, which you can't really do when you're attacking well.
I have noticed it's a little bit once you have more different types of orbs, that might be improved a little bit, because you might be able to find ones that suit your style a little bit more. But yeah, I can occasionally see there be some problems with that.
And it's like they mentioned a little bit, but like the ring system, like they start giving you the stuff for it early, but they don't really explain how to do it.
Yeah, you haven't really gotten to the point in the game where you start being able to get more orbs than the 2 you have right now and get the rings and pendants that go with them.
Yeah.
That's why I said you should start playing the game earlier. No, I understand that if it's not the kind of game that super appeals to you, that might be why you wouldn't necessarily want to spend as much time with it. But you're the one who records, so you were the first priority to get the code.
Yeah. And like I was gonna say, it's a little bit like, I wish there was like some sort of guide to know where exactly you need to go. Like, I know it's kind of just meander around, but like there isn't a whole lot of definite
that's
direction.
That's part of what it takes from being a Metroid and Metroidvania is that usually the place to go is where you can go that you haven't gone yet. But yeah, you found the boss.
Oh boy.
Spoilers for those watching the video if it hasn't happened yet. That pulsing thing in the background comes to life and attacks you.
Yeah, so like, hi, welcome to Vania.
Yep.
If the thing in the background is pulsing, it probably wants you dead.
Did anybody else have any thoughts on it? Oh yeah, here's another thing is that it's interesting. You can stop time during boss fights to, survive and avoid attacks. But you do also get, it's not limit the achievement. You get the achievement for beating the boss on a normal mode or above. There's a really easy mode, and then there are a couple of hard modes in addition to normal mode. But also, you do get a special notice on your achievement in the game if you beat the enemy without getting hit, without stopping time, or both. And there is one item that you get if you do that to all of the bosses.
Another thing that I thought was kind of weird is, remember in the beginning cave with the enemies that had like range attack?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they can
shoot seeds at you.
Yeah, apparently they can still lock onto you after with the time stopped, and I thought that was kind of weird.
Like if you stop the time, the attack will still hit you, or
it'll still lock onto you. So like that's just kind of like just a weird thing I noticed. It's like it's not the worst thing in the world, but it would be kind of nice if you could really use that to more effectively dodge stuff like that.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, I can see that would be nice. So yeah, the time obviously the time mechanics are kind of the crux of the story. So they're important to the game, and I think one of the stronger things, even though it's not like a super out of nowhere story or anything, but the options in it and the characters in it are pretty interesting, so I think it's worth playing for that, which is why I'm trying to avoid extensive spoilers. But yeah, it's a little bit small compared to some other Metroidvanias, but I think that it still has enough interesting attributes to be worth playing. And I don't know if it's the good time to go into the price, but it's currently $20 on Steam. I don't know if the PlayStation 4 and Vita versions are cross-buy, but I think they're also around the same price. I know there's like the cross-save thing.
Now, is it like cross version where like if you buy it on PS4, you get the Vita version free, or?
I think so, but I'm not sure. Adam, did you have any questions, or Twilight?
No.
I think all of my questions have already been answered.
Okay, well.
All right.
I'll take that as a sign that I've done my job fairly well here.
I'm just bad at the game.
Yeah, I honestly, I wasn't that great at first either. And one of these things, if you're not great, if you aren't thinking about things in the right way, sometimes it gets hard. And you can always go back and get more healing items or whatever. But yeah, I honestly recommend checking it out, although I am biased, so.
Right, on that note, the week ahead. So, coming up on Tuesday, October 23rd. Looks like this is happening at long last. We will be having Philip Doschel of FDG Entertainment back on the program. We're going to be talking about Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom.
Oh
If
boy.
I'm remembering
Ooh.
correctly.
Oh boy.
Yeah. That is not the Wonder Boy remake. That is a new game.
Yeah, that's the new one. That's
Yeah. I have to pause and make sure I don't get the two games crossed because,
Similar titles and similar titles and whatnot.
Yeah, and the creator of the Wonder Boy franchise, I believe, is helping make this one. So,
well, again, it's still basically part of this. That's within acceptable limits for being considered part of the same franchise to me. Although I understand if there are intellectual property differences or something.
Well, yeah, it's it's a spiritual successor versus an actual successor. Or anyway, coming up on Wednesday, October 24th, we'll be having Andrew Arridge of Sistinance Games. I believe that's how that's pronounced. They are currently developing The Mastros, a online multiplayer RTS, which is currently in early access. I believe that hit early access earlier this month.
Oh man!
So, we might get some codes for that. We might not. But yeah, that's what we're talking about this week. Until Tuesday, I wish you good gaming.